I'm excited to dive into the Easterseals Disability Film Challenge with filmmakers Koura Linda, Stevie Collins, and Sarah Penn. I'm so happy to have you all. I did practice.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm so excited to dive into, I didn't even know about this, the film challenge, so I would love to know from all of you, how did each of you find out about the film challenge and then decided to be a part of it? Sarah, why don't we start with you?
Yes, so I actually found out about this film challenge through a really good friend of mine who knows I'm a filmmaker and is a disability advocate herself. She reached out to me last year and sent the challenge to me and said, "You got to participate in this." But last year we had a lot going on around this time of year and it just didn't work out. So this year I was keeping my eye on it to make sure that we would be able to participate. So I sent it to Koura and I was like, we absolutely need to participate this year. It's two of, or at least my personal favorite things, which is filmmaking and disability advocacy combined. And so now here we are.
Oh, that's great. And then Stevie?
Well, Koura there is my best friend. So she reached out to me and I knew about the film challenge, but I am myself not a filmmaker. And so I just get excited to watch the films each year. And so when she reached out and said like, "Hey, would you like to be in this?" I jumped at the chance, absolutely flew cross country to do it. And yeah, and it's been awesome.
Now, you were a co-writer, weren't you?
Yes.
Well, then we're going to dive into that next. But Koura, we have the director, producer, editor, actress. I mean, you name it. For Koura. Koura's great. How did
Sarah,
you hear about it?
I had seen a little bit about it in Filmmakers with Disabilities group that we're in, which is actually how I met Sarah in the first place. She kind of flagged it for me. And we did have a lot going on we had a lot going on this year, but I was determined it does combine two of kind of the best things in the world, disability advocacy and filmmaking. As soon as I saw that it was buddy comedy this year, I mean, the word shenanigans doesn't exist without me and Stevie. So as soon as it said buddy comedy, I literally just and Sarah was like, "We're doing it this year, right?" And I was like, "Yes." I just texted Stevie and I was like, "Do you want to come be in a movie? Because you don't have kids or a job or anything like that you have to do."
Oh, that's great. And can you tell us a little bit about the film challenge? Like, what are the requirements? Is it similar to the 48-hour film festival where you have to have a character name, a line that needs to be said, a genre?
It was created actually kind of in response to the 48-hour film challenge. As you can imagine, 48 hours as someone with a disability is not always a realistic time frame to be able to make a movie. I know Koura has done that, and she can speak to her experience doing those. I know for me, it was kind of something that I looked at it and I was like, yeah, I really realistically don't even think that's something I could physically do. But this kind of extends that to be about 5 days. This challenge is a bit different from the 48-hour in that you can do a bit of prep work. So you can be working on kind of a temp script prior to the start of the challenge. And then when the challenge started on April 2nd, you are given the themes, one of the themes that you need to include in the film. You're given some props that you need to include, as well as some locations. So you can have that temp script, but you can't really finalize things until the start on April 2nd when you get those final items. And then once we had those final items, we had from April 2nd to April 7th to shoot it and edit it and get everything finished to be the completed film we have today.
Yeah, it was a really great film. I mean, so many moving parts in it, so I would love to kind of dive into that. So the film's called The Heist. Koura and Stevie, you both co-wrote it. How did you come up with the story? Do you want to tell us a little bit about the story? Was it taken from your own personal stories?
So it says in the poster, it's based on an almost true story. Unfortunately, I ended up back in the hospital last year, and it's a long story, but after getting all the bills from the hospital, I was kind of joking around that I was going to need to rob a bank to be able to pay for these bills. And when buddy comedy came out, it was kind of right when I was starting to get bombarded with hey, these bills are really, really due now. You need to tell us how you're paying these. The idea of doing a heist to pay for the bills. I really wanted it to not be where I wanted to showcase disability, but I didn't want to make it where that's the plot, that, it's all about that Star is deaf, or it's all about that Lily occasionally needs to use a wheelchair or whatever. I just wanted it to be a life experience that happens to be people who happen to have disabilities. Like, anyone can have a hospital bill. Anyone can rob an art gallery. No, I'm just kidding. But the kind of basic story idea, I ran that by Stevie because I'd have to make sure she was cool with, like, hey, you want to make a movie about robbing an art gallery? The characters of Lily and Star are kind of pieces of both of us. I mean, we're best friends. We have a lot in common, obviously. The sort of all the anxiety and the worry and the kind of like realistic, like, hang on a sec, we're going to do what? Like, all of that got put on Lily, and all of the more like, I've got a crazy idea, I'm here for shenanigans, let's do it, got put on Star, just to kind of really make those two characters separate. But both of us, depending on whatever shenanigans we're doing, both of us have different levels of involvement in both Lily and Star's character. The whole thing really was Sarah's idea. And I really wanted, and I was trying to figure out, how do we put another character into this? It is a short film, we only have 5 minutes. Obviously, if you're selling things, you need a fence. And the idea of a fence that is just this like gorgeous glam woman who happens to have a service dog, and you know nothing about this woman. You don't know who she is, how does she know sign language? Why does she have a service dog? Why is she so fabulous? Like, none of those things. She just is. And I just loved that character, and I felt like it was such a good counterpart to just have a woman, like doing business TM off to the side, while like Lily and Star are kind of like trying to figure out this crazy idea that they have. And then because it's an ASL, because there is representation from communities that I'm not a part of, Stevie helped me really develop the script into something that was authentic representation, and moving her character through 3 different forms. Well, I guess her character has 2 different forms of communication, but the script has 3 different forms of communication. It has the pure ASL, the simultaneous communication or SIMCOMing, and English, like, all blended. And we had to figure out, how do we explain how Star knows how to speak without having 5 minutes of exposition? How do we explain all of these pieces? And then some of it was just brilliant ideas from Stevie, where it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And she's like, let's just make out and distract the guard. Like, all of these wild things. That's where the shenanigan parts come in. So I'm just like, okay, this is what we're doing now. I can let Stevie speak.
That's 100% who I am.
I can let Stevie speak more to that part as far as the story development goes. And then Sarah also, both Stevie and Sarah are associate producers, because like, I don't have a service dog. I'm not super familiar with both the way of that world, and then also just making sure it's accurate representation. So all of the service dog things, all of the representation of Daisy, who is, or I should say Flower, because that's the character who's played by Daisy, Sarah's actual service dog. That was all consulted on with Sarah.
Yeah, definitely. So I think a lot of our writing and our storyboarding wasn't about, this is the idea, this is what we can do, are you guys good with that? It was more, this is what we would like to do. How would this work with this person or with this person's character? Does this fit for the disability? Or how can we showcase this idea and get that from the person who knew best of the 3 of us for that specific disability or that specific challenge? And that kind of writing, I think, is really important, because it's not, I'd be all, say, I'll do all of one person's point of view. We needed the different points of view. We needed the different experiences, and we're representing so many different communities just within the 3 of us. Because a big thing when Koura was just talking about the 3 different language outputs. So we have the English, we have the straight ASL, and then we have something that's called SIMCOM, which is short for simultaneous communication, meaning you sign and speak at the same time. That's not straight ASL because ASL has its own grammar and it doesn't fit English's grammar. It's different. So SIMCOMing takes English grammar, but ASL signs and ASL mannerisms. So it's not quite one language or the other. It's a mixture of the two, and often deaf or hard of hearing people might choose to do that in order to include maybe some non-signing peers that are in the room with them. But the communities are so different because my upbringing is different than, say, one of my fellow actors who themselves was born deaf. I was not born deaf. I started to lose my hearing at 19. So I grew up speaking English. I grew up as a hearing person. And so my experience is completely different than, say, someone else who's deaf, who was born deaf and may have choose not to speak for themselves. Some of us choose to speak, some of us don't. I feel comfortable still speaking because I still remember what it feels like, what it sounds like, what it's supposed to look like. I may not always be like that. I may, as my hearing gets worse, I may decide I don't want to do that anymore. And if I'm in an environment where I don't need to speak, I don't. So like that's a good example in the movie when Lily and Star are in the car and it goes completely silent and they're signing to each other and we don't have anything but captions because that's how they would speak to each other. It's how they would communicate with each other. Star doesn't need to speak because Lily can understand her. So that's kind of a big representation we wanted to give of the different viewpoints so that it's not, oh, hey, this person is deaf, so let's make sure that they are the token deaf person and they do what every single deaf person would do. Well, that's not a thing. Same with Koura's character being an occasional wheelchair user. It's not, oh, this person's in a wheelchair or this person has a wheelchair. Oh, they're a paraplegic. It's not this one assumption of this is what we think we know about these different types of people with disabilities. Or, oh, Sarah's character's got a service dog. Oh, she must be blind. That's not, these just have these different assumptions about disabilities, but we want to educate and really advocate for the various different types of disabilities that people have and live with and work with and be able to give the best, most accurate representation we can.
Well, and I thought that the story was very ambitious, being a disability film. I mean, all the places that you took it was so amazing. And it just shouts out that just because you have a disability doesn't mean you can't think bigger, and do bigger things, right? And I just love the diversity of all of your characters. Like, Koura, you're kind of the reluctant, like, what? You want to do this? And then Stevie, your character was more like funny and just like really pushing the boundaries. And then Sarah, your character of very few words, but was so prominent in its existence. Like, oh yeah. So Sarah, do you want to tell us a little bit about your character?
Sure.
And how you approached it?
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun for me because I like to think of this character as the woman that I would like to be in terms of the confidence and the just being there and owning the room. I think there's some moments in my life where I achieve that, but I also sometimes revert to my introverted fluffy blankets in the corner, just watching my Netflix in my own square, which has its time and place. But, I also like to think that I can have those moments of confidence. So be able to play a character that is her life 24/7 is just a really fun thing that I was a fun challenge that I really enjoyed. And it's also really fun because being able to have Daisy with me, who is my real world service dog, who has been with me. So I got placed with her in 2016. So several years together, and she gets to be with me throughout the film, but it's not about her. And that's something that I've always wanted to see in representation for service dogs, is it's not about the story being someone with a service dog. It's just someone happens to have a service dog, but that has absolutely nothing to do with the story. Because if I'm going to an event, it's not about Sarah has a service dog and is going to an event. It's just Sarah is doing and living her life and happens to be accompanied by a service dog, and that's that. And it's even cooler that we don't even know why Queenie needs a service dog in the movie. It just is. It's just a fact of existence. So that was a really cool added layer of representation that it doesn't drive the story. It just adds it in there the same way if you watch a Disney movie and someone in the background has like a diabetic patch or anything like that. That's those representations that aren't about the story, but they exist because they're part of the real world. and you're just living in the world together. So that was one of my favorite parts about playing Queenie. And then obviously being able to play a fence was a really fun experience, because I am a very much on the line of like way all rule follower good. So to play someone who was a little bit less that is a very fun challenge.
Yeah. No, I thought you all did great jobs, and you were all like three-dimensional characters, because sometimes people can, you watch movies and it's pretty flat. But this was like very dynamic. Everybody had their own persona. And I just thought, just well written and so many moving parts. It was so cool with the when they're actually going to go steal it, and the lights, the beams. I mean, you went all out. I mean, for 5 days, you did a lot.
Yeah, we knew we wanted to do lasers if we could. We knew we wanted to have that. We had like an idea, but as Sarah said, you can't lock the script until you get the prompts. So once we got the prompts, like I had to design the magazine, and I had to make the hospital bills, and I had to make the security card and make Daisy's little patch on her, which we didn't even see in the movie. I feel like I should have gone out of my way to like feature it more, but she had a service dog ID card that was for Queenie with flower, like it was made for the characters. And then we had a very incredible and very supportive VFX artist in Canada who Sarah was on set. So we filmed the hallway with the stunt double first, because Star is otherwise able-bodied. She's deaf, but she's completely physically capable in every way. This was a little bit different in that usually you'll have able-bodied people playing disabled characters. This time we had a disabled person playing an able-bodied character, in that Stevie isn't about to be doing handstands and splits going down the hallway. She does not have the spoons for that. That would not be happening. So we had a stunt double come in who could portray Star doing these things. So I choreographed it to be as shootable and editable as quickly as possible with as little. We made choreography that would make the lasers as easy as possible to integrate. And I storyboard it very specific. So we shot all that first, and I had very specific shots. It was like, we need this shot. Okay, good. That's it. Her hands went down. She did the handstand, lifted her hand. She's done. Okay. She steps and turns. That's the shot. Okay. She does the split. That's the shot. Like we just got the shots. And then while Stevie and I were doing our parts, because there actually is footage of us doing the heist, it was supposed to go in the end credits, but we ran out of time. So that's going to be a bonus for the festival version. Sarah was sitting there on set, dumping the footage and getting everything together for the first couple of shots while we shot the rest of the shots. And then I had to rough assemble it and send it to the VFX guy, who was then sending me shots while I was on set the next day. Lily's phone was my real phone, so I could look at the messages coming in while we were like between setups and stuff. So we kind of had all of that running.
Oh yeah, that's amazing about the video effects and the people that working in Canada. I mean, also when you were talking, it's like there were so many, like you have a stunt person, you've got a VFX person internationally. It leads me to, how did you approach your schedule, your shooting schedule? You have 5 days, and did any things come up, and how did you handle it? Because when you're on set, lots of things happen, right? Did you feel like being in the Disability Film Challenge, is there other things that one has to be more mindful of?
Yeah. So this one, I definitely would love to have a person with disabilities who thinks the way I think as a producer, that I could kind of offload that to, so that I can just direct or even direct and production design and gaff and DP and whatever. Like, I like doing all those things. One of the things that I had to be really mindful of was just the hours. I'm not the only person with physical limitations, so I'm not about to schedule 2 15-hour days back to back, especially when, one person's already on a 3-hour time difference. That's just not extra helpful. We started our days, the first day was at 11:30. We were only on set from tires on, tires off from about 11:30 till I think 7. So including unloading, setting up, shooting, packing up, loading up the cars and leaving, it was 7.5 hours, I think, for the entire day. And that was all of the heist footage, all of everything in the hallway, the art gallery, the cafe, outside the building, the guard coming in, all of that footage was in that 7.5 hour block. And then the next day we pushed call till 12:30. because we did have to stay up. Sarah helped me get everything edited. I was on one computer, she's on another computer. I was putting together one half of it, she's putting the other half of it, exporting the stills, sending them. It was a lot. So we ended up starting day 2 at 12:30. My character's sitting in all of the shots because I can't stand all day long. That's just not gonna work for me with everything else that I have going on. If I'm going to be allocating my energy towards standing, then I just have to be doing a little bit less as far as wearing so many hats. So we did things like that. Like we staged a lot of the characters. Usually Star's the one standing and Queenie's either sitting or leaning. I think she's standing in like one scene where she's not, or 2 scenes that are very quick, because some things are accommodations that aren't disability accommodations, like, people being able to eat food on set. Some people are vegan, some people are vegetarian, some people have religious limitations as far as what types of foods they're able to eat. And some people have allergies, which you find that might fall more in the disabled category. But you want to make sure that your cast and crew, especially for something like this where they're volunteering, if you're serving lunch, you want to make sure they can eat it. If you're going to have snacks, you want to make sure they can eat it. So we send out an allergy survey ahead of time that includes a question for preferential food choices. So we made sure that our snacks were all, peanut free. We had gluten-free options. We had sugar-free options. We had vegan options. Like those were all of the food for like just kind of crafty snacks. And then for the meals, same thing. We had peanut-free options, gluten-free options, vegetarian options, vegan options. Like we just made sure when we were planning that. And someone could be like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. It's really not. You just make a Google form once, then you have it forever. You just duplicate it for each new shoot. You email it to the cast and crew and say, please send this back with your contract. They send it back with their contract. You have an automatically made spreadsheet. You see all the information and boom. I mean, Chipotle has vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, vegetarian options. So there you go. Get everybody Chipotle. Or, it's not that hard if you just take a couple minutes. We pushed up the shoot. Originally, we were going to prep on the 3rd, shoot the 4th and the 5th, and edit the 6th and the 7th, or part of the 7th. Because our VFX artist wasn't available, we had to move everybody. We moved everybody up so that they were coming in on the 2nd, and we were filming on the 3rd and the 4th. That ended up actually being really important because honestly, on the 5th, short of dumping the footage, maybe syncing up some audio and just kind of getting the files ready, we kind of didn't do anything. Like we were all just recovering from the shoot. It was a lot. And I don't know, like Sarah, Spacey, and I love editing. And I think if we took that away from us, we would have been upset. Like we wanted to do it. So we just had that time to rest and then we dove in. And it did mean that we weren't able to get the end footage in, but also our computer crashed. So that was fun. But we were able to get the VFX in, the sound, the score, the sound design, all the laser whooshes and the, the foom, foom, when on some of the cuts. We wanted to add more animation to the like split screen sort of animated frames. Those are all manual. Those were all like keyframes. That wasn't like an effect or some drag and drop thing. We sat there like keyframing where we wanted all of the shots to move on the screen. So we want to add like more like a dividing line, just kind of to make it look cooler and a little more polished. But we'll do that for festivals. That was a long answer, but there was a lot to answer your question. There was a lot that we did to set it up.
Thinking you guys shot it in Florida, or tell me where okay, it's in Florida. How many locations did you have? Because there were a lot, or at least I saw, or were you makeshifting a place into 4 places? So yeah, tell me how you got your locations and where you were shooting.
So the art gallery and the cafe was all, and the stairwell and the elevator, all of that was the Downtown Arts District in Orlando. Huge shout out to Kat for being amazing and for letting us film there. We had to be very careful because it was open while we were filming and we accidentally turned out the lights in one of the gallery because there was someone in there, but they were very quiet. And all like we're rolling off and this person like walks out of the darkness and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was daytime, but I turned off the gallery lights. They were very quiet. So all of that, everything outside in the streets, that was all the Downtown Art Gallery. We did that all one day. The next day, huge shout out to Kenny and Carol Danner, who we received a connection to through the Bender Filmmaking Services. Hannah Bender, the stunt actress, it was actually her grandmother's house. So their house was the kitchen, the sort of table area we were sitting at, the backyard area with like kind of the screen fence behind us, the garage with that incredible flame hot rod that Queenie's sitting in front of, and then the big like storage area, all of that was literally in their house or their backyard. So we just were here, and then we moved 10 feet over here, then we moved 20 feet over there, and then we went across the driveway over there. Yeah, that was all at the Danner's house. And it was all in Orlando, Florida, or the greater Orlando area.
Now, this may be another, well, maybe let's take it to Stevie. Any thoughts, or how did you feel through the 5 days not being a filmmaker, as you said? How did you feel it all went, and the funnest thing about it for you?
I think, honestly, having my best friend as my coworker and wearing all the hats that she has is probably the most fun part for me, is getting to do something with one of my most cherished people in the world. And so that's a lot of fun. And knowing that I had someone that I could completely trust, and automatically by proxy her entire team, those I had met and those I hadn't, I already knew that I was in, a safe, accommodating place, because as a deaf person, you never really know what you're going to get. And you're never sure exactly how people are going to react to you. I mean, even just my flight over, I had a couple of really negative interactions, and I didn't expect that to happen. And so it's one of those things where I didn't have to worry about my disability at all. And I was able to not worry about it, but got to embrace it, and I got to showcase it, and I got to represent it, and I got to try to say, hey, like, I'm just one tiny minuscule part of a gigantic, awesome community, and we get to showcase that, and that's really exciting. And I have to say that I think probably the really most fun part about actually filming was the heist part itself, and just wearing those ridiculous masks and, and trying to do anything with them. As we would move and as I would sign and go up and down, they would like inch up your face and then I can't see. And if I can't see, I have no communication at all. So I'm constantly between takes trying to straighten it. And then like Koura had to take hers off and on, and then she'd put it on, and then I'd have to straighten it for her, because they go crooked when you put them on, because you can't see yourself put them on. So, I mean, it's just one of those little tiny things that you think, well, that's completely inconsequential, but it was so fun. and just lots of fun, because, even though a lot of Star's character is very much me, I'm very kind of outgoing and full of shenanigans and always standing and jumping around and bouncing around. I don't necessarily steal stuff from art museums, so it was fun to pretend to do that. And I'm excited for festivals, and we can add kind of that last part in, because that was one of my favorite things, is we actually started to physically take all the things, and we're of course not doing it the way you think you would do it. You just start holding everything, like, it'll be fine, we'll just hold a big mound of things and it's fine. Probably not how professionals would do it, but that's how we did it. And so it was a lot of fun getting, to be something that you are, but at the same time something that you're not, and merging those two worlds together.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, like, when you threw out, "Hey, let's make out," that kind of caught me off guard. I was like, "What?" You're like, "Okay, well, whatever. However, we move this heist forward, I guess." You were just like, "Okay, that's weird, but all right." I thought that was so funny. I mean, just everything about it, and also just I liked how also awkward you two were, like with the masks and stuff, because of course you're not going in as a professional. And then Sarah, your character is just like, I just loved it. It was just so cool. Just the whole thing was really cool, and the way that you edited it, going in and out of scenes. I was curious if because it made me think of Entrapment, and then I realized that's a 1998 movie with Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones, and then I was thinking, I bet it wasn't that one. It was probably more like Ocean's 8 or something like that. Was it similar to a film that you were thinking of?
I did rewatch all of the Ocean's films before making this, just for to kind of get in the headspace. The dual screen was actually brought about through necessity first, and then through artistry. In some movies, you can just have a voiceover, but you're not going to have a deaf character voiceover. That's weird. So we needed to figure out a way to have because we only have 5 minutes. And at first it was going to be, well, she starts signing and then we'll just cut. And then it was like, well, that's going to take too much time. What if we voice her? We can't do that. So then it was out of the necessitation of having Star on the screen so you can see her talking or speaking or communicating. Our language is so ableist. So you can see her. And then that was like, okay, good, let's just do a split screen. And then it was, how do we then kind of make that heist have that dynamic? And I mean, Sarah was a huge part of that as we were doing it. So I can let her speak as an editor as well, as we were kind of putting that section together. But part of it started from how do we actually do this right? How do we actually do this in a way that makes sense? And then it was, okay, good, now we've got this sort of heist jigsaw puzzle thing happening. How do we pace that? So I can let Sarah chime in too, because she was a huge help for that.
Probably one of my more favorite parts of the edit was the that whole sequence, because obviously we knew we had to have Stevie's character Star on screen for certain portions, but that was kind of the extent of the required material. And then there's when you hit your required and you're like, okay, I have all this fun for leeway and creative decisions and kind of trial and error. That's where the fun begins, because you get to figure out what's working and then say, okay, we had them sliding this way. What if they slide this way? Or what if they came down? And then it was just a lot of fun to be able to kind of be as creative as we possibly could in, it's a very short segment, but it was a lot of fun. And also, like Koura said, it was, we were doing it by keyframes. We were manually figuring out when to throw it in, which it's also a fun editing challenge. It's not a throw on a quick effect and then move on. It's all right, when do we need to start it? What is the most effective? How long should this go on? How long do I need it to go on? Balancing those requirements with the creative part to create, I think, what was a really cool end product. So I'm also very proud of that section.
No, I thought you did a great job. And if people don't know about editors, the keyframe, masking, all these things that you have to do, sound design, I mean, it takes time. And now you have a limited amount of time to try to get everything done. So it's probably good that you had 3 editors, right? And what did you shoot it on? What camera did you use?
Yeah, Sony DSLR.
All right.
With most of our... what it is, we have a vintage CCTV lens that we love, that we use for everything. It was $20 on Amazon. I'm kidding. I think it was 25, but we use that for almost everything. Any place where there's that really cool kind of bokeh effect behind a character, or where the edges kind of have this sort of soft focus, we use that vintage CCTV lens. And then I think we just had a standard 18. We're people that, I'm so sorry to Alexa and Ari Alexas, not Alexa Amazon, to Ari Alexas and Black Magics and all this. There are times where you need that level of a sensor, you need that sort of much higher end. But if you know how to expose the camera in color grade, you could shoot on anything. It doesn't matter. I've done a short on an Ari Alexa where we had this very sort of beautiful night scene, and it was lit, but it was involved around a campfire in the middle, and the exposure was really tricky. And having a higher end camera meant we could shoot that the way we wanted to, and you could see everything and not have the way it would have looked if we used the Sony. But this entire film was just on our little Sony DSLR. It's this big. We look like, tourists or something taking pictures. You wouldn't even know what we're filming, but it shoots 4K. And, what more do you need? Sarah and I did all the color, which was so fun. Both of us love color grading so much. We did all the color. We stayed up on Saturday night, just didn't get that done. And then we exported the 4K export with the color in it, because once you add color, especially when you have an adjustment layer or a LUT, and then you've got adjustments on individual shots on top of that, it can make the export very long. So the whole thing took about 10 hours to export at the 4K. And then once we had that locked picture color graded file, we then used that to do the score and the sound and the dialogue mix and the end credits and all of that stuff. So when we exported the final film, it took 20 minutes, because ended up adding color to the captions because it wasn't working and we were panicking because we had like 20 minutes left. So I just threw a lot on the captions, which probably wasn't the smartest idea in hindsight, but I was exhausted and in a rush and just needed to solve the problem. Yeah, because we did open captioning with full like captions. We also did an audio description for the entire film. So like I would be working on one thing while Spacey and Sarah were doing the audio description. And, I was working on something else while Sarah was literally doing all the captions. And then Stevie's like checking the captions as we're doing them to make sure that they're formatted properly. So while Stevie was back in LA, so we already had like, Spacey laying out all the end credits while Sarah and I are sitting there doing the color. And then Spacey would come over and be like, we're stuck on this thing. And he'd be like, oh, what if you do this? And we'd be like, oh, great. Thank you. So then we'd do that. And then we were very lucky to have 3 computers and 3 editors and the internet and to kind of be able to, Stevie's like going through the Google Doc as Sarah's like copy pasting things over into the credits as she's laying it all out and kind of like timing them on the thing. And it was a lot, like putting it all together in the end. But I think, pro tip, if you're on a deadline and you want it to look really good, do your color before you do your sound. And like once you're picture locked, and get that exporting and try to do that while you're sleeping. Unfortunately, I had too much anxiety. So I was just staring at the export for like an hour, just like watching the numbers go. And then I just fell asleep on the couch for a couple hours, woke up shocked because the computer was quiet. And then saw it was just being quiet. Still had a couple hours left. And then when it finished, we just started working off of that file instead of having every individual shot with all of the different LUTs and, luminetry color and all that stuff in it. We had one video file. And then when the computer actually crashed, it was like 8:47 or something like that. And we had to have it uploaded by 8:59. And Spacey had the brilliant idea. Our end credits wasn't its own video. So he popped in another computer while I was trying to reset the one that I was on. And he exported the end credits as a finished file because we just had it as a Photoshop document that we were using. So he made that a separate video file. We threw that in the timeline with the already exported film. And then it just had to process the videos and put them together. And that went super quick. And we were able to, I think we were uploading at like 8:58 or something. I took a photo on my phone and like emailed it to them. I was like, I just need proof. We're on time. It's going to say processing, but we are on time. So yeah.
Well, I think that that's a testament to the due diligence you have to do when and especially like you were just saying with the sleepless. I don't know that, just what you said, I'd be afraid of the crash. Not that looking at your computer is going to prevent that, but, there's something energetic that you're putting towards your computer. Please don't crash. Please get this done. And that's nerve-wracking.
Well, we only made it because literally while I forget what Spacey and I were doing, we were like fixing something on something. And I was doing the paperwork because you have to get like all the contracts. There's like forms you have to fill out and stuff. So I was doing that. And Sarah was literally just watching the export because it was like 8:40 something. And I was like, this is going to feel really stupid, but Sarah, can you just literally keep an eye on the computer? And then all of a sudden, and she's completely quiet, just sitting there. And all of a sudden she goes, it hasn't moved in 2 minutes. And like the 3 of us just like go over to the computer. We're just staring at it and it's just not moving. And if she hadn't been sitting there watching it, we wouldn't have noticed that it didn't export. Like as it was, we had like less than a minute left by the time we got everything up. Because she was sitting there watching it, she was able to flag it as soon as it stopped working. And we were able to be like, okay, what do we do? And we left it running, even though it wasn't running, it was just sitting there, just in case it was going to pick back up again. Literally until Spacey had exported the other file. He had the other file. It was on an SD card. He brought it over to me. I copied it onto this computer. I loaded it into the timeline and it still wasn't moving. Then I canceled the export and I started another one because on the off chance that it just magically was like, I think I'm going to work now. But having Sarah like literally watching it. And at the end, it was the 3 of us staring at the computer. Like it was, 8:58 or something. And it's just Sarah, me, and Spacey. And we're just like this, just willing it to not stop. And when it hit that mark, because we didn't know if it was going to glitch again. And it glitched with only 2 minutes and something left. So we had to run the entire way till it got to that part of the file. It didn't glitch. It kept going. And we let out a collective sigh, watched it finish. It did that 100% and then just sat there as it always does. And you're just like, but are you really done? Are you really done? And then it was done. And then we were just like, Vimeo upload. So yeah, no stress whatsoever. And then I crashed for several days after that was over. So fun.
Well, and okay, so the three of you are working on individual computers. Can you just walk us through, or maybe Sarah, you could talk on this one about how did you attempt to edit on three different, I'm assuming Premiere Pro timelines? Is it connected to each other, or you're each doing a section and then giving the section to somebody else? How does it all come back together? And could you walk us through that?
Yeah, so we had kind of different approaches depending on where we were in our process. I believe that Premiere does have some kind of teams something or other, but we did not utilize that. Full disclaimer, that was not something we were utilizing in our process at this point. At the beginning part, it was with the VFX. So Koura literally had half the timeline on her computer. I had the other half on my computer. And then it was just kind of getting the one timeline onto the other person's computer to combine them for the VFX. And then when we hit assembly edit, it was me and Koura over one computer. So we were kind of tag teaming it and helping each other out, just focused on the one computer. And then when we got to past a point of the picture lock and adding that color, then we were kind of split back into three computers. So I was doing a text document with captions. Spacey had the end credits on his end with Photoshop. Koura had sound design going on her computer. And then, once she would be finished with sound design, I could take over and take the text document I had and then add that with the credits onto that main timeline and things like that. So it was kind of like passing around the computer and then utilizing other resources such as text documents or Photoshop or things like that if the whatever we were working on that moment didn't necessarily need to be in Premiere. So that's how we were able to utilize three different computers simultaneously for one specific project.
Wow, that is amazing. It's always kind of neat to see the workflow. And, and it's so great that you had the three of you. I worked on a 48-hour film, and there were three of us editing. One was doing the credits, I was doing the main assemble, and then another person was taking on some of the assemble. And it's just fun because you're all together, and you're not alone, because as editors, you can be alone and it's really lonely and dark. But so, and also I just wanted to talk before we wrap this up, fundraising. I saw that you did some fundraising. Do you want to talk about your approach, how much you raised? What were you thinking? And how cool?
I can speak to that just from the production side. I was thinking that I'm broke. And one of the requirements for the film is that everybody has to be a volunteer. So you can't pay anybody as far as cast or crew goes. You could pay a kid fee, you can pay a location fee, you can have catering, but you can't have $10 million, hire Steven Spielberg and, Zoe Saldana, and now you've got, whatever. Everybody has to just want to be a part of this and just be supporting. For mostly just because of financial necessitation, was trying to think of what we could do to even just offset some of the costs, because we flew Stevie from LA. We used our air miles for that. We wanted to cover Sarah flying down. None of us live in Orlando, so we needed a place to stay while we were in Orlando. These aren't exorbitant costs. I think it was $700 for an Airbnb for all four of us for a week. It wasn't even some huge amount of money. We just were trying to figure out how to cover it. And part of the campaign is this awareness campaign. Part of the challenge is building a community, connecting people, getting people interested, getting people involved. So I was like, what if we had sponsor slots where people could pay $25 and get their name in the film, or, $50 and we'll put their, their company name on the website, or $100 and we'll put their, whatever the thing was, we broke it up. And we limited the spots because, if we raise 20 grand, we're not going to use 20 grand on this film. We can't. I'm sure I could, but I wanted to also keep it fair to where we're not getting, oh, okay, let's stay at the Ritz and, we're just wasting money. we opened it up. The vast majority of our sponsors were $25 sponsors. We ended up raising about $2,000, was really super, super helpful, especially when the Airbnb was $700. But it meant we could do things like, we didn't know where we were filming at first, and it's so much cheaper to fly into Tampa than to fly into Orlando. So if Spacey and I are going to Orlando, but Stevie and Sarah are flying into Tampa, and it's going to be like almost $1,000 to have them fly into Orlando, could we spend $200 and rent a car? Sarah, Spacey, and I can keep editing in Orlando, and Stevie can drive herself back to the airport in the rental car, return the rental car. So it was to cover things like that that just made it allowed us to also build a really awesome network in a way that I hadn't actually thought of doing. I've done crowdfunds before, but we had so many people step up who were just they just wanted to be a part of it. They just wanted to support. And, like I said, the vast majority was $25, but when you've got, 20 people giving you $25, it's, your rental car, gas, and food, from those people. So it really helped us build the community around the film. And it really helped us have more of just an already established audience of people who were excited about it and who wanted to be a part of it. So super, super thankful for that. And we thought of it super last minute. I think we were only doing it for, Sarah can correct me, 2 weeks, I think.
Sounds
maybe
right.
3. Yeah. So it was just, blitzing LinkedIn messages, sending out a couple emails, and my grandma mailed us a check. She's on there for the
Grandma.
sponsors, grandma. But it was just really cool to have people just step up. And there were some people who provided in-kind services that we credited them the value in sponsorship. So I think in-kind services, it came out to be about $3,500, but actual cash and money spent was about $2,000.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So maybe we could just have some closing thoughts, anything that you want to share, and we'll go Sarah, Stevie, Koura. So any last thoughts that you want to share about this project and or anything that you would just want to let everybody know about disabilities?
Yeah, I think this was a really cool project, and I'm just super grateful that we got to be a part of the Easterseals Disability Film Challenge, because it's such an important opportunity to not only bring more awareness to and media representation to people with disabilities, but also giving a space in the industry for people with disabilities, when currently we're in an industry that is very much lacking accessibility, to be blunt. And so I just was absolutely thrilled to be a part of this opportunity for those reasons. And then to be able to do it with, such an incredible team, to meet Stevie, because she's awesome. And then, I knew Koura, but to be able to work with Koura on set, it was my first time actually physically being there with her. It was so amazing, and collaborating with the edit, and just the entire process was just so much fun. And I really enjoyed myself. And then the bonus of having Daisy with me. I know everyone loved having Daisy, but that was my added level of that's the representation I keep pushing for, is the service dog representation. And so to add that into the film as just another level is really fun. And I know Daisy has her own fan base among my friends and people who are like, Daisy! So they're going to get a kick out of seeing her on the big screen as well. So there's just so many factors of this that are just so cool, so much fun, and such a worthy and important piece that come to life in a film that also gets to be fun. It's not necessarily serious. It's a just an enjoyable film to watch, but it also has such important messages. And I think that's a combination that I'm glad we were able to achieve.
I think that my 7-year-old is Daisy's biggest fan. For sure. Every time, where's mom? Where's the dog? Mom, where's the dog? Where's Daisy? Where's the dog? But other than representation that Daisy's going to get just for my 7-year-old, but being able to really represent a lot of different communities, and to 100% show not just, yes, people with disabilities can do so much, and can do pretty much everything that you guys can do. It's not even just about that. It's about we're not all the same. We're not all classified as one group of people. We're it's an umbrella, and we're all under it, and we're all different, and we're going to showcase every single one. And having, I think, a record-breaking amount of films being submitted for the challenge this year, that's even more representation than we've ever had, all coming out at once on one day. Today, in fact. And so, like, being able to really be a part of something that awesome is a highlight. It's so exciting. I hope we get to do it every year. I hope that we have more of that, so that we actually just have it as part of the just part of what filmmaking is in general. Not that we have to have a challenge to do it, that it's just we're just included, and so that we are a part of the everyday life of filmmaking. That's our goal, is to just be seen as equal as everybody else, and being put into those roles, and it not being the token person. It's just because, oh, they just happen to have one, and we wanted to do that in our film, as Koura had said earlier, and we just want to see that in the future. So being a part of the next step of that process is amazing.
I don't like when I get like press junkety, like if we do a bunch of interviews and I say the same thing, but I do kind of feel very strongly about the representation of the film, and the fact that, like, I want people to watch this and see the filmmakers as much as they see the characters in the story. Like, the requirements are you have to have at least one person with a disability. I think we had maybe one person that I know of who has no connection to the disabled film community other than they work with me. Like, there's no familial connection. There's no personal connection. They're not personally disabled. And they were like a PA. Every single person on the main driving creative force, literally every single one, is a person with disabilities. Like, writing, directing, producing, acting, editing, like main actors, editing, color, sound design, score, not the main laser VFX, but all the other effects in the film, production design, wardrobe styling, hair, makeup, like planning, scheduling, first AD, like every single thing. The people who made this had no help from anybody who didn't have a disability. And I think that is so important to recognize. Like, give us the resources, give us the space, believe us when we tell you what we can do, and let us do it. And that, to me, is what I really, really, really want people to see when they watch this film. And then, of course, I just want them to be entertained. I want them to laugh. I want them to feel empathy for Lily and what she's going through. I want them to, bow before Queenie, as we all should. But like, I want that, like, and honestly, like, being on set with these two was amazing. Like, it was so incredible, and they're just so professional and so fantastic. As the director, I gave them like what I wanted from them, from their characters. We had some rehearsals. We like went over kind of like the lines and the beats, and then that was it. And then I think I maybe gave like a handful of direction, like on set, as far as the talent went. But other than that, it was so smooth, and it was really, really, really fun. And I just want people to be entertained and to see a movie where, like Sarah said, Queenie has a service dog. Okay. Is that the most interesting thing about her? Nope. Do we even care why? Nope. This woman knows how to fence multi-million-dollar goods, and she has a hot rod with flames on it in her garage. Like, can we just find out who Queenie is, please? I think we need like a Queenie backstory, like prequel. But like, that's what I want people to latch onto. That Star, is it tragic that her mother didn't learn ASL? Of course it is. It's horrible. It's way too common. It's not okay. But is Star not now a mastermind criminal? Not because her mom didn't learn ASL, but because she's a funny, energetic person, and she cares about her friend, and she's like, no, I'm going to help you. And, does Lily have physical limitations? Does she deal with, brain fog and other problems because of her chronic illnesses? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that she doesn't have friends. She doesn't have a life. She doesn't have things going on. She thinks that her friend's asking her to go shopping with her because that's what friends do. They get a catalog of cool stuff and they go out and go shopping. Like, that's just something you do with friends. And I know I go on and on and on about this, but I really, 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 really feel so strongly that representation is so much more powerful when it's organic and authentic and it's not forced. You know, I didn't cast someone with a service dog to check a box. I cast someone with a service dog because Sarah's amazing. I love working with her. The whole thing was her idea. She asked about being in it. And then when I was like, oh, and you have a service dog. And I think we're at Sundance or something. And I dropped like a business card on the floor. And yeah, is that what it was? And like neither of us were in a position to pick it up. And she's like, it's okay, Daisy's got it. And she just, said the command to Daisy. Daisy went over, picked it up, handed it to us. And I was like, whoa, Daisy's a superhero. Like, that's amazing. And then it was like, well, could Daisy do that? Like, could Daisy be the one to get the security card? And it's just natural. Like, oh yeah, of course, a service dog can pick things up. So distract the guard, cause a bunch of chaos and confusion. And then the dog just, who's looking at a service dog? No one is looking at the service dog. Like, no one's paying attention. So it just meant that everything just happened organically. Stevie's absolute bestie buddy comedy, it's going to be me and Stevie. Great. Stevie's deaf. Okay. Now the movie's in ASL. Like it should just be that way. It shouldn't be, oh, we have to have a this, or, oh, we need to talk about it. And it's not that the disabilities never come into part of the conversation or they never come into play, because obviously they do, but that's not what the film is about. And I think if you're going to have a character that's from an underrepresented community, their underrepresentation is not the most interesting thing about them. And their dialogue should not just be about their race or their religion or their sexuality or their ability or disability. Like, nobody in this world is their label. Like, they're just not, especially in the disabled community where it's intersectional across all communities. It's not just a label. And I think I just want people to see that and see how exciting storytelling can be. I would love to make this into a feature where I probably wouldn't play Lily in the feature, but I'd bring back Sarah and Stevie in a heartbeat. And have it like explore these women's lives and have more, and, really get into the heist, make like an Ocean's 11 film where somebody's deaf and someone else is an occasional wheelchair user and someone else has a service dog, but they're robbing an art museum. Like, that's what's happening. And that's what to focus on. So, little bit of a tangent. I'm sorry. I feel very passionately about that, so I go off. But yeah, that's my rant.
No, I think that you hit the nail on the head, because that's how I felt when I watched your movie. I didn't feel like it was about disabilities. It was a story, and I was engaged in the story, and there happened to be disabilities with the story. So thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to get out there and make a film. Reach out to your local filmmakers group to get involved and connect. Please subscribe to the show if you like it, and follow me on Instagram @TammyMcGarrow. Until we meet again, what's your story?